Exodus chapter 36, verses 1 to 38. I am reading from the New Revised Standard Version, the Green Bible. Verse 1, Bezalel and Oholiab, and every skillful one to whom the Lord has given skill and understanding to know how to do any work in the construction of the sanctuary, shall work in accordance with all that the Lord has commanded. Verse 2, Moses then called Bezalel and Oholiab, and every skillful one to whom the Lord had given skill, everyone whose heart was stirred to come to do the work. Verse 3, and they received from Moses all the freewill offerings that the Israelites had brought for doing the work on the sanctuary. They still keep bringing him freewill offerings every morning. Verse 4, so that all the artisans who were doing every sort of task on the sanctuary came, each from the task being performed. Verse 5, and said to Moses, the people are bringing much more than enough for doing the work that the Lord has commanded us to do. Verse 6, so Moses commanded, and word was proclaimed throughout the camp. No man or woman is to make anything else as an offering for the sanctuary. So the people will restrain from bringing, verse 7, for what they had already brought was more than enough to do all the work. Verse 8, all those with skill among the workers made a tabernacle with 10 curtains. They were made of fine twisted linen and blue, purple, and crimson yarns with cherubim skillfully worked into them. Verse 9, the length of its curtain was 28 cubits, and the width of its curtain 4 cubits. All the curtains were of the same size. Verse 10, he joined 5 curtains to one another, and the other 5 curtains he joined to one another. Verse 11, he made loops of blue on the edge of the outermost curtain of the first seat. Likewise, he made them on the edge of the outermost curtain of the second seat. Verse 12, he made 50 loops on the other curtain, and he made 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that was in the second seat. The loops were opposite one another. Verse 13, and he made 50 cloths of gold, joined the curtain one to the other with clasps, so that tabernacle was one whole. Verse 14, he also made curtains of goat's hair for a tent over the tabernacle. He made 11 curtains. Verse 15, the length of each curtain was 30 cubits, and the width of its curtain 4 cubits. The 11 curtains were of the same size. Verse 16, he joined the 5 curtains by themselves and 6 curtains by themselves. Verse 17, he made 50 loops on the edge of the outermost curtain of one seat, and 50 loops on the edge of the other connecting curtain. Verse 18, he made 50 clamps of bronze to join the tent together so that it might be one whole. Verse 19, and he made for the tent an covering of tan ram skin and an outer covering of fine leather. Verse 20, then he made the upright frames of the tabernacle of acacia wood. Verse 21, 10 cubits was the length of a frame, and a cubit and a half the width of its frame. Verse 22, its frame had 2 pegs for fitting together. He did this for all the frames of the tabernacle. Verse 23, the frames for the tabernacle he made this way, 20 frames for the south side. 24, verse 24, and he made 40 bases of silver under the 20 frames, 2 bases under the first frame for its 2 pegs, and 2 bases under the next frame for its 2 pegs. Verse 25, for the second side of the tabernacle on the north side, he made 20 frames. Verse 26, and there 40 bases of silver, 2 bases under the first frame and 2 bases under the next frame. Verse 27, for the rear of the tabernacle westward, he made 6 frames. Verse 28, he made 2 frames for corners of the tabernacle in the rear. Verse 29, they were separate beneath, but joined at the top, at the first ring. He made 2 of them in this way for the 2 corners. Verse 30, there were 8 frames with their bases of silver, 16 bases under every frame two bases. Verse 31, he made bars of acacia wood, 5 for the frames of the one side of the tabernacle. Verse 32, and 5 bars for the frames of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the frames of the other of the tabernacle at the rear westward. Verse 33, he made the middle bar to pass through from end to end halfway of up the frames. Verse 34, and he overlaid the frames with gold and made the rings of gold for them to hold the bars, and overlaid the bars with gold. Verse 35, he made a curtain of blue, purple, and crimson yarns, and fine twisted linen with cherubim skillfully worked into. Verse 36, for it he made 4 pillars of acacia and overlaid them with gold. Their hooks were of gold, and he cast for them 4 bases of silver. He also made a screen for the entrance to the tent of blue, purple, and crimson yarns and fine twisted linen, embroidered with needlework. Verse 38, and its 5 pillars with their hooks, he overlaid their capitals and their bases with gold, but their 5 bases were of bronze. Exodus chapter 36, verses 1 to 38. I am reading from the New Revised Standard Version, the Green Bible.